Welcome, everyone. It is your boy, Safe Investor AG here. H-Bar Simp, Saucy Warrior. And today, on today's interview, we got the one and the only, the almighty, the top developer of the Hedera, of the best blockchain ecosystem in the entire crypto world, planet, universe. Ken Shamrock Hedera Anderson. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. Ken Anderson.
What an
So,
intro.
what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Hey, man, people don't realize you're a celebrity. Just in
I,
case, help me out. Record this video in case I fudge it up. I have, I think I don't want to screw this up, man. Okay, so we're gonna have Ken just brag about himself. I want everyone to understand the level of developer this guy is. So Ken, basic question, how long have you been involved in the crypto industry? And then when did you start? Because I know you helped structure Hedera, didn't you?
yeah, I was one of the founding employees of Hedera.
Boom. Okay,
I was
so
the chief
how,
developer advocate.
holy crap. Dang. Okay. So when did you start getting into crypto before you got into Hedera?
Yeah, I think my first kind of exposure to crypto was in like 2012 when I read the Bitcoin white paper, and I was blown away by it, kept talking about it. Didn't get around to buying much of it until about 2014 maybe. I bought a bit,
At what
and
price?
then Uh, geez, I can't remember. I think it was either in the 200s. It was after the first crash, the first major crash.
Holy
It was
crap.
like in the 200s. And then I bought again when it was at like 900. And then I promptly lost my key. And then I found it again in 2017 when it was hitting about 6,000. And I sold it and went and bought Ether at 180.
Oh my gosh. And I do remember that. I
Yep.
remember you
That was in
mentioned,
2017.
and I'm
Yeah.
kicking my head for not like listening to you.
Yeah, so it was always from it was all the way back from 2012. I had that wonderful experience of panicking once you realized that you had a key that was holding Bitcoin that was worth something. And I remember like freaking out about that and being like, "Oh man, where did I put that key?" And like I legitimately lost it and just went on with life. And then one day just found it and was like, "Oh, wait a second, is this what I think it is?" I went and loaded it up in my wallet and I was like, "Oh, hello. I have some Bitcoin in here." So I went and sold that, bought a bunch of Ether just in time. And that
Hey,
was in early 2017.
so you got into Ether, them. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, Hedera. Tell me
Yep.
about Hedera. When did you get into Hedera? And how'd you prep yourself? What you seen Hedera then that people didn't see?
Yeah. So I was working on at the time on a project. So I've got a company called Launch Badge. I've had it since 2015. Actually, late 2014, but early
You're
2015
the
is when I
owner.
registered.
You're the
I'm the CEO and co-founder of it, right? So my business partner is Ryan Leckie. He's literally like a super genius, GitHub superstar. He's one of the most brilliant people
like yourself.
on the earth. No,
You're
I just surround myself with brilliant people. That's
right.
my that's
That's
my
what genius.
secret
That's what genius
sauce.
people say. That's what they say all the
No,
time.
you're too magnanimous. So yeah, but in 2017 we had a client at Launch Badge called Mingo, and we were legitimately building a non-crypto application. It was a chat aggregation app, and that project's still around. It's still actually going pretty strong right now. Just a lot of stuff going on in the background. But I remember in 2017 he came to me and he said, we're building probably the best messaging app out there because it aggregates all of your other messaging app services. He's like, this whole crypto thing's starting to take off. Wouldn't it be cool if people could send crypto to each other as easily as like sending a text message? He's like, we're already connecting everybody's messaging services together. Why don't we just like incorporate crypto? And so I was like, okay, that's cool. But maybe we can have a little bit more like blockchain functionality, like trusted conversations, where like we can actually log hashes of our conversations on the blockchain
Oh,
so that
that's
I could, yeah, so we can always go back and be like, I didn't say that, and be like, well, according to our conversation that was logged onto a blockchain, you did say that. So
it.
so we had this idea of creating like these kind of trusted or secured conversations.
What year was this?
2017.
Wow.
And you know, he was going the traditional route of friends and family round of raising funds. And that was the ICO summer. And so he sat there and he was just like, I'm just not going to leave a bunch of money on the table. He was like, listen, we want to use blockchain, we want to use crypto. Why don't we run our own ICO? So Mingo ran an ICO and they contracted Launchbadge to help build the technology of Mingo during that time. And that was just a wild summer, that 2017. But one of the things we were looking for was a blockchain that could support the volume of messages that we needed to support for the platform.
Mm.
So we needed speed, we needed it to be cheap, we needed it to be fast. And if I remember correctly, it was in September of 2017. We were in the process of researching EOS and Ethereum and just everything out there that was available. There weren't a ton of performant platforms out there at the time. Ethereum was still too expensive and too slow. EOS looked like it might be an option, but then I read an article that said it said Hashgraph, the blockchain killer, and I was just like, oh crap, okay. So I went and read that and started following up with it, and then joined the Telegram for Hashgraph, which was basically Lehman and a handful of people there. And I went back and read all the messages in that the Telegram channel, and just made sure I knew everything about Hashgraph before I went and started asking questions. And then we got the Swirlds SDK, which was the Hashgraph software that Lehman built, and we started testing it, and we were like, "Holy crap, this actually could work! Like this Hashgraph algorithm could satisfy this Mingo use case." So I know there was a bunch of stuff going on in the background with Hashgraph, like there were uh, Jordan Freed and Edgar and Mance were already starting to like build up this group of companies to use Hashgraph, and that
The governing
potentially
council?
it was before there was a governing council. It was before we were even talking about a governing council. This was
Wow.
before that, but they were talking to companies like that. So some of the council members were already in discussions about using Hashgraph. So those are already kind of like teed up. I know those conversations are going on in the background, but really like Mingo was like the first Hashgraph use case that announced itself. So that's how early we
Mingo?
were. Is
Like
that
Mingo, the app Mingo?
yeah, Mingo the app, the one
Like the
that
one with games and the one with
and sponsored Tyson
Fury.
Fury's fight last year, and yeah, yeah, that Mingo. So it was literally like one of the first apps on the in the Hashgraph ecosystem. And just like every other project in the crypto space, everybody's having ups and downs with regard to finances and stuff like that. But I talk to that team over there at Mingo regularly. They're still going strong. They're building a lot of traction on the ground, getting ready for the next stages of the app development. So, but that's the thing is like people don't realize that like Mingo was there before Hedera was there using Hashgraph. It was one of the first use cases.
Holy crap.
And it was one of those things of like it was a private library at the time, so a private network. And so I wanted to get a license to it so that Mingo could use it. So I wanted to go talk to Mance and get a license. And I saw that Mance was speaking in Bangkok at a conference, at a crypto conference. And so I bought a plane ticket and flew out to Bangkok and waited till after his talk. And when he came off the stage, I said, hey, can I get, 30 minutes with you? I'll buy you a mango smoothie. And so I had a mango smoothie with Mance and Jordan and Edgar and asked every question the community wanted to ask. Like at that time, everybody was asking things like, why is it proprietary? Why is it licensed? Why is it a private or permission network? And people were asking all these questions because there was no public network at the time.
Yeah,
It was
that's
just
yeah.
this.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
people were asking those kinds of questions, and so I was asking those to Mance as well. And I asked him for a license, and he said, "Yep, you can have a license." And then he kind of shared with me a little bit of the vision of potentially going and becoming a public network. And so This was I met up with Mance in November of 2017. So I flew to Bangkok in November of 2017. And then in January, he emailed me and said, "Hey, we want you to come join our company and help us build our developer community." And so I have Launchbadge going already, right? So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Launchbadge. And so what I had to do is I had to basically turn over control of Launchbadge over to Ryan and just basically take a passive role in Launchbadge. And I put myself basically on loan to Hedera to become the chief developer advocate and help build the entire developer community there.
And that's when we stopped watching those UFC fights because you were too busy, huh?
Yeah, I got pretty busy at that time. Yeah, those were actually that was about the right time. Yeah, that we stopped watching UFC together. But
Yeah, see,
um,
it was like, what the heck, bro? Like the
I
UFC
got
or
re-
Giants
yeah, I
coming.
got really busy at that time. And then in
I
March we launched Hedera. So I was involved with Hashgraph in September of 2017. I had a license to use Hashgraph library in November of 2017, and then in January 2018, I joined at the time what was called Swirlds, which was the Shared Worlds uh, amalgamation. So Swirlds was the company. And then in March, we launched Hedera as a public network with the governing council. And then I spent the
2019,
next, no,
2019,
that was 2018, March of
2019.
2018. Yeah,
Right.
we were at the PlayStation Theater in New York City, is where we launched it officially. And and then I spent the next 3 years basically building the developer community, working with council members and developing and exploring their use cases. Built an incredible developer advocacy team. That was actually one of the things when Mance invited me to join the team. He said, "Here, I want you to join," and it was actually Mance and Jordan said, "Hey, we want you to join as a developer evangelist." And I took the word evangelist and crossed it out, and I wrote advocate. I was like, I don't want to go out and preach to developers. What I want to do is I want to represent the developers, and I want to be the developer's voice in the company. I want to be the external developer's voice in the company.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of the voice of contention a little bit. I'd always come back and challenge the engineering team and say, "Hey, this is what everybody outside wants. Let's build this." And so, but yeah, I spent the next 3 years recruiting council members, helping them figure out their use cases, working with the developer community, recruiting a developer advocacy team. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And then
Dang.
in 20, I want to say it was, well, I don't even know what year it is right now. It's 2023. So that'd
2023.
be 2020. It'd be 2021. I had some personal things to take care of with the family. And so I had to take some time off. And then when I got done with that time off, I was going back to work and I was thinking, you know what? This company's kind of grown. It's running on its own. It's doing well. The time off that I took, the company kept growing without me. So it was kind of one of those things of me realizing like maybe I can do better or more. I can make a bigger difference from outside of Hedera. And so that's exactly what I did is in September of 2021, I left Hedera and went back to Launchbadge full time. And so my goal with Launchbadge was kind of the same thing, to make Launchbadge the biggest and best system integrator for Hedera. And so, Launchbadge was the second external consulting firm. There was OpenCrowd, who was the first one, and then Launchbadge was the second one for Hedera. And so Launchbadge worked on all the SDKs, worked on my HBAR wallet. I mean, if our fingers are so much involved in everything Hedera. We've worked on SDKs. Kabuto is a project that we built. We got a number of clients in the space. We worked with Hala Systems and Coupon Bureau and helping them adopt Hedera.
Yeah. Wow. All right, man.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah. So it's in other words, like we've
it's
been living Hedera for the last 4 years, 5 years.
it's almost as if I'm speaking to Lehman, man. Lehman Bird himself.
Oh no, Lehman. I'll tell you what. I meet with Lehman every once in a while. I see him. We kind of cross paths, and we kind of accidentally ran into each other in Korea last summer. I was out there meeting with a client, and he was out there for a council meeting, and so we went out to dinner together, and he still blows my mind. Man, we sit there and we just talk, and I was just asking him questions and throwing some of my ideas of like what I'm trying to do from the outside. And some things he's so funny because he's intellectually honest. He's super direct. If he thinks something's a bad idea, he'll tell you exactly why it's a bad idea, but he does it in like the nicest way that you feel like, oh yeah, no, I should have thought of that. So no, he's a brilliant. He's on a different level. He's a brilliant guy, and
Holy
so I
smokes.
enjoy my time with him.
Wow. Wow. Man. Well, my questions are going to seem a little too dumb now.
No, no, this I'm actually kind of excited for this because I don't get to I know you're more on the kind of like the speculation side, the more the investment side, and that's not where I spend a lot of time. So I'm excited to kind of see where this
So,
conversation goes.
yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm going to ask you questions that some of my followers and subscribers in my Discord have wanted me to ask you.
Okay.
So now that everyone understand your background and the level you're at, so I'm sure people will pay their 2 cents to listen to this and give it, intense
We
attention.
we need to get micropayments set up with H bars so people can pay for your content. And then I'll get a royalty off of that and it'll auto settle on Hedera. And we're good. That's the best use case right there.
Dang.
People can pay literally 2 cents in H bars to watch the video, and then I'll get my 10% or 20% or whatever auto settled.
Holy smokes. I
That's what
couldn't
we got to
even think of that. Man,
do.
I'm a promoter, I'm a marketer, I'm not a tech I'm
Yeah.
savvy, I'm not a genius, dude. I'm not like I have no look.
If people have ever seen your calisthenic workout, they'll change their mind about your genius.
No, I mean I'm a physical warrior. That's
Yeah.
why I call myself Saucy Warrior from Saucer Swap, and I'm super bullish. I'm I think HBAR, the deeper I dig, that thing is gonna take over the world. It will take over the world. Organically, it already is. And let's get to the question. So,
Yeah.
okay, so someone really wanted me to ask this because they're concerned. This was a follower that it's between it. They're following both XRP and they're
Mhm.
following a Hedera. So they said, after the latest hack on the network, what concrete steps were taken to ensure it never happens again? It sets it back quite a bit. Many here have invested heavily into that network and its offshoots like SS.
Mhm.
So what steps have been taken?
Yeah, that's a great question. We probably should look a little bit at the hack itself. So if you look at Hedera it doesn't have an EVM organically built into it originally. It has a consensus engine. It has its own crypto and token service. And what happened was that they took the EVM and plugged it into Hedera. So there's a lot of things that have to be like mapped together to work. So like, for example, your Hedera account ID in an EVM, it doesn't know what to do with a Hedera account ID. You need an Ethereum account ID or an EVM account ID. And so there has to be this mapping between your Hedera account ID and the EVM account ID so you can actually use the EVM. Also, the EVM can't directly talk to Hedera token service or Hedera crypto service or Hedera consensus service. So what happened was that the engineers built what were called precompiles. So precompile is basically saying, I'm going to write some code in the EVM that can talk to Hedera. So I can do things now in the EVM, which I couldn't do before. As a matter of fact, Kabuto takes advantage of this, right? Kabuto's name service, which we built over like a week at Launchpad. It was just a fun project. But you can now, from the EVM, check to see if the person querying the smart contract owns a specific token, right? So we're able to do that because there's these things called precompiles. If you know much about Ethereum and ERC tokens, there's a particular function in an ERC token that's called delegate. And the idea is that you can delegate the authority to spend a token on behalf of you. So I could basically say, Adrian, I'm going to give you permission to spend, 100 of my tokens from my balance. So that you might do this for custodial reasons. You might do this if you're giving your kids an allowance or something like that, right? There are reasons why you would have a delegate function. The problem is because there were so many of these functions to map up with precompiles back into Hedera, that precompile specifically for delegate wasn't mapped up properly. And somebody was able to exploit that one precompile. And by the way, almost every other precompile is used all the time by everybody out there. So it's like, this was one of those things of like, it's a function that's not frequently used. And somebody realized that there was a weakness there and attacked it. So what happened is incredibly quickly, within 24 hours, they had the precompile fixed and deployed. If you remember, they actually had to take down the network for a few hours. I think it was like 12 hours or something like that. Yeah. To make sure that everything was up and running. They were testing it. I mean, it felt like a while, but they were communicating with the community. They fixed the precompile. So now that one vector is closed up, so that you can think of it as like there was a little hole in the side of the ship that was leaking, and they plugged up the hole and sealed it. So they fixed that precompile permission. It is a permissions thing in the mapping of the precompile. So in other words, the code is fixed. You can actually look at the code and see that it's fixed, and you can see that they wrote tests to prove that it was fixed. So that particular problem is not going to ever happen again. And my suspicion is that most of the other precompiles aren't going to have a similar issue because they're popular precompiles used by people all the time. And so they were more rigorously tested. That one that was not rigorously tested and was exploited is now rigorously tested.
Okay.
And now I can almost guarantee, just knowing the engineering team at Hedera, they've gone through every little touch point between the EVM and Hedera and said, are there any holes here? Any other holes here? So, I mean, that's not to say that the code is perfect. It's a massive library. Every code base has vulnerabilities, and the question is, how severe are they, and how available are they, and who knows about them? But they realize the importance of being a public network and are putting the due diligence into to not just plug up the holes, but also verify that the holes are plugged. So
bears, huh?
What's that?
It was the HBAR bears just completely trying to sink the ship. HBAR haters just.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so I don't know.
For someone to find such a niche, such a detailed,
Yeah. Well, I think
it should have taken quite a bit of.
I mean, there's a few theories out there. I mean, there's one theory that it might have been a competing networks group of engineers that were looking for vulnerabilities in Hedera to exploit it.
That's the only way, though, because the way you explain it, I mean,
you'd have to know the EVM really, really well.
Okay, that's what
the Ethereum virtual machine, yeah. And if you're not familiar, I'm sorry if I'm throwing around technical words here, but the EVM is.
No, I'm catching what you're saying.
It's the virtual machine on which smart contracts run. It's the same thing that Ethereum runs. It's the same thing that the Binance chain runs. It's the same thing that a lot of networks run. A lot of networks are EVM compatible. And so Hedera, to its credit, said, hey, listen, there's a million developers out there who know how to write code for the EVM. Let's take the EVM and plug it into Hedera. And the first problem was like, okay, you can have tokens on Hedera, and you can take tokens from the crypto service on Hedera and use it on the EVM, but you couldn't move coins back, and you couldn't control Hedera native services from the EVM. And there was a big gap for developers. And so when they plugged that gap with these precompiles, and they were pretty rigorous about the attack surface and making sure that there weren't any gaps. But this was just the one that got through. So, but I guarantee that one's never happening again. That code's been patched and tested a million times over. Funny enough, it takes like 2 weeks to test Hedera when they fix things. That's how rigorous their testing is. When they make a big change to Hedera, they run it through 2 weeks of intense stress testing and chaos testing just to make sure that whatever happens, they're going to catch it before it gets deployed to live.
And I'm sure there's always a bear for every bull. And so I'm sure they're going to keep, looking and trying to find the needle in the haystack, because that's what it sounds like they did.
Yep. Well, and keep in mind that Hedera has it has a bounty program. So if you find a bug in Hedera, you can make money from Hedera by letting them know.
Ooh, how much?
It depends on the bug you find. Larger bugs make more money. I remember giving people thousands of dollars for finding certain bugs. So it's like, this is what kind of adds a little bit of credibility to the argument that maybe this was a competing network, because a competing network doesn't want the bounty. A competing network wants to crash the network, right? But some hackers, if they think they can get more money from the exploit than they can from the bounty, they'll do that. But again, this one, like, everybody can track where you're taking the money. So as a hacker, what are you going to do if you can't cash out?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting use case, but yeah, that's obviously now the network's more solid, and we got to see Hedera in action communicating how they handle that type of serious situation. So
I'm glad. I'm actually pretty impressed now that you went to the detailed procedures that they went through. Honestly, I didn't imagine that they actually went to such extent. I'm actually pretty proud of being HBAR simp.
yeah.
Well, be HBAR simp. I will simp for HBAR any day, any moment. Okay. Second question. That's I'm glad you answered it with the detailed as you could, because many people a lot of my subscribers, I feel like, are way smarter than I am and will understand to the detailed description that you explain. They will understand it. So thank you for that.
Sure thing.
So my next question. Holy crap. Hold on. I'm going to pause the video. This will be a quick pause. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep. Did you
Wait,
pause?
can you see me? Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Let me go back and pause. Ah.